All right, let's get some analysis. Vicky Pryce is a board member at the Center for Economics and Business Research. She also previously held a position as joint head of the UK Government Economic Service. She joins us now from London. Vicky, a pleasure to have you on the show. Two stories I want to talk to you about. First, let's start off in the US. I mean, this release is the largest since the reserve was created back in the mid-1970s. But is it likely to resolve the ongoing energy crisis?
It's not going to resolve it, but it certainly has soothed the markets because we saw oil prices come down. And so there is quite a substantial addition to what is coming to the market as a result. And I remember the West has been trying for some time to get the OPEC countries to increase the extra amount that they had already said they were going to be putting into the world markets, but they haven't quite done that. So some extra help from the US is hugely helpful, actually, at this point. It has calmed nerves quite significantly. And, as I said, the market has reacted quite positively to it.
The president must be under tremendous pressure. I mean, inflation was already an issue, and now you have an energy crisis. This is not going to be helping an administration that's heading into the midterms.
Well, no, and I'm afraid we're having something quite similar happening all across the world because oil prices and gas prices being so high. I mean, they have affected so many different countries in different ways. Huge subsidies have been given to consumers in some countries and not in others. Businesses have been helped in some countries and not in others. So we're having quite a different, way in which countries have reacted to this. And indeed, energy prices have affected inflation in the US very significantly. And the question will be, of course, in the minds of the voters, who can actually handle this crisis better, and is it being handled well right now? And there are concerns of that sort in the US. There are concerns of that sort all across. We're having some local elections ourselves in the UK here, and of course we have the elections in France, the presidential elections in France, and elections in Hungary. Yeah. So I think it is affecting the world quite significantly. So economics and politics are terribly closely aligned right now, and you're quite right to be raising it.
Different countries, you say, are reacting differently. One country that is reacting differently is Russia. I mean, President Putin's decree stating that buyers must purchase gas using Russian rubles. I mean, this is a move that clearly has one objective, and that's an attempt to boost the local currency, right?
Well, yes, but that's the idea. I think, in fact, the local currency has gone up very significantly, as we know, after the initial fall, because it had come down by something like 30 to 40% right at the beginning of the invasion of the Ukraine. And then Russia reacted by raising its interest rates, of course, from 9% to 20%. But then, of course, because the oil price and gas prices have been going up, they've been collecting a lot of money. I mean, after all, the EU depends on something like 40% of all its gas on Russia, and of course high prices meant higher revenues, and of course the ruble has recovered. It recovered most of the losses. So now the idea is, of course, you pay in rubles, but the question is, how do you pay in those rubles? It's not as straightforward as it sounds. What is required is by the countries that have been sanctioned, if you like, by Russia itself, or the ones that are sanctioning Russia, which are considered to be unfriendly, have to, as a result of this announcement, open an account with Gazprom Bank or another bank that may not have been banned from using the SWIFT system, which was an early sanction imposed by the West. And then they do pay that in euros or US dollars. And then that gets converted into rubles in the bank and then paid to Russia. So in practice, it may not make that much difference. But it has quite an impact in terms of sentiment, because there's threats from Russia to do the similar thing for all exports, well, particularly grain and mineral products and some metals and so on. So if it extends, then it's just going to complicate life quite considerably. And we still don't know what exchange rate exactly will be used to translate US dollars, for example, into rubles.
It looks like we are heading into a standoff, because the original contracts with these quote unquote unfriendly Western countries that are still valid clearly state that these payments for Russian gas must be paid in either euros or in dollars. We've heard several European leaders come out and actually stick to their guns. You say that Russia supplies Europe's 40% of their gas, and there are threats flying all around. I mean, how far could this potentially go, you think?
It could be, it could lead to a reaction which basically says, individual countries will no longer be buying or refusing to buy any gas from Russia. But I think the way that the system might work may still validate the contracts because you're still paying in euros or dollars into that bank account, which then gets translated into rubles. So it is just possible that those contracts may still be valid if it is done in a way that satisfied the lawyers. Who knows the exact practicalities of doing it this way? So there is a bit of a getaway sort of clause in whatever Putin has suggested, which might still make it possible for those gas supplies to continue to flow.
Okay, Vicky Pryce, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us here on TRT. I do appreciate the analysis.